This is Steve Ridgel, and I've been thinking lately about, what's the true joy and hope for a Christian? For years, I grew up, and a lot of people grew up where there was all the talk was about heaven. The purpose of our life was get to heaven, and everything was about getting to heaven. And I don't think that everybody ignored what you do in this world, but there wasn't a lot of talk about how we help in this world. I think a lot of people fed hungry people and helped people, but there wasn't a lot of talk about we do that because Jesus did. And so then lately, there's been a lot of talk about we're here to do things in this world, that kingdom business is about the here and now, that we're to feed the hungry and we're alleviate poverty and all those kind of things. And not so much talk about where we're going. And of course, the truth is always in a few years, we'll go the other way and people will say, hey, we haven't talked enough about the hope of heaven. So I'm all for a balanced thing. I do think while we are here in this world as God's people, we have an obligation to live like Jesus lived. Now, that does mean that we feed hungry and we help people that are poor and we shelter people that don't have shelter. We visit with the lonely. We do those kind of things because that's what Jesus did. But I also want to be clear, I don't think that's the mission of the church. I don't think the church's call is to alleviate poverty or feed every hungry person in the world. And the reason I think that's because if that's what Jesus wanted done, he would have done that. He could have. And the poor are always going to be with us. I think we do those things because Jesus did them. I think the mission of the church is to make more believers, to make disciples. I think that's our commission. And as we do that, of course, if I make a disciple over here, then he'll feed the people he can. And if they make more disciples, they'll feed people. And so it does help with a lot of things in this world. But I also want to say, I think we need to talk more again about the hope of heaven. Because, we sometimes, if we're not careful, give the impression that if you'll follow Jesus, then your job's just to fix everything in this life, solve things in this life. My dog just came in. Help things in this life. And here's the problem with that. When you think this is all there is to it, you really sometimes miss the call of Jesus because you get real disappointed when things don't work out well in this life. When people get sick and they don't get well, they don't get healed. They pray hard, and God chooses not to heal them in this life. He heals them, but it's in the life to come. Or the hungry person in this world, and he meets some Christians and we feed them, but they can't ever quite. They're always having to be fed by, and man, they just can't get out of, and it hurts and it's hard. And hope of heaven is very real to them. The person with fractured relationships, and they never are in this life going to get everything made right. And it hurts, estranged from their kids, or looking back at a crushed marriage, or whatever it is. Parents already dead and they can't fix that, and so many things. And hope of heaven, where everything's going to be okay. There's not going to be any more tears, no more sorrow, no more sickness, no more death, no more crying, not any temptation, not any sin. And so I do think we Christians need to learn how to live with our feet firmly on this earth because Jesus has things for us to do, to reach people who don't know him and to be his hands and feet. So when we do encounter hungry people in our world, we feed them. But I also think we very much need to keep our eyes fixed on heaven because that's where all the real answers are and where everything really is going to be made right. So this is Steve Ridgel looking forward to the hope of heaven and doing what I can here for the kingdom in the meantime.